Being the only dragon living amongst pony kind, Spike has always been a bit of an outsider in the land of Equestria. But despite being an entirely different species, the ponies have never once shown Spike any amount of prejudice, and have always treated him as one of their own. But then again, Spike had never given the ponies any reason to fear him. That is, until now. As the episode begins, we see Twilight taking part in Reshelving Day. I honestly don't think that there is any real reason for Twilight to pull all of the books out only to put them all back. I figure she just wants an excuse to read through some of her books again. But she is interrupted by Spike as he tells her about a fire ruby that he's been aging for months. The way Spike is acting here shows that he values this ruby more than any other item he's ever had. Which makes Rarity's actions here really hard for me to watch. Now, Rarity probably knows more about gems than anyone else in Ponyville. Maybe even more than the majority of ponies anywhere. She was immediately able to recognize its pristine condition and natural beauty. And we can see just how torn up she's feeling when she discovers that Spike intends to eat it. But at the same time, Rarity should definitely be able to see just how important this gem is for Spike. He's even keeping it in a custom-made chest. But even though we see Rarity trying to keep herself from doing so, she still makes the decision to try to convince Spike to part with it. I realize that Rarity is not asking for the gem directly, but the way she is looking at Spike here, I have never seen Rarity look at Spike like that in any of the previous episodes. It is admirable to see that Spike was willing to give away his own birthday present. And it was essential to the story for Spike to be charitable here. But I still have a hard time justifying Rarity's actions, at least at the start of the episode. Cut to Spike's birthday party, where we see Spike is surprised to be getting all these gifts. Normally we might think that Spike's behavior here is rather odd, until we discover that all his previous birthdays were only spent with Twilight, and she would only give him a book. At first, Spike is overwhelmingly grateful to all his friends for their gifts. But once he discovers that others will give him gifts just by mentioning to them that it's his birthday, Spike rather quickly goes from appreciation to outright greed as he suddenly starts wanting everything in sight. Twilight is able to snap him out of it, but the next morning she sees that Spike has collected a small hoard of treasures from around town. And the two of them are completely surprised when Spike seems to have more than doubled in size overnight. It quickly becomes apparent that there aren't any ponies around town who can explain this sudden change. But once again, Zecora shows some rather unique knowledge, this time on the subject of dragons. After an examination that includes some more adorable squee sounds, we get an explanation on Spike's behavior. Apparently, dragons can grow at an exceptional rate when they are able to collect treasures, and will continue to grow as they continue to collect more. This is a rather interesting interpretation on dragon greed that I had never heard of before. We've all heard stories about how dragons collect great mountains of treasure and will guard them mercilessly from any that would dare try to take them. It just seemed to be an integral part of their nature to seek after precious things. But MLP adds a bit of a twist to this old legend about dragons by introducing a concept about how it actually feeds their growth at an alarming rate. And we can see that the more Spike is collecting treasures, the more he loses himself in his greed. Spike seems to be little more than base dragon instinct at this point, and is continuing to get worse. We get a rather clever reference to King Kong when Spike grabs Rarity to add to his growing collection. Yet another nod to old movies that a lot of kids wouldn't get. And the back and forth demands of Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy are even funnier than I remember. We get another appearance from the Wonderbolts, although this time they are acting more like soldiers rather than celebrities. And while they are able to distract Spike, they end up getting caught against the mountain. This seems rather weak in my opinion, as the writers are making the most elite flying team in Equestria to be little more than a nuisance, with no backup plan in sight. It would make more sense if the Wonderbolts were intentionally there to be a distraction, meant to draw Spike away from the city, giving time for the Royal Guard to arrive and actually be a serious threat to the dragon. Although I do have to hand it to Rarity here. She has no idea that this dragon is Spike, and despite everything that she's been put through, she still has the drive to try and lecture him. And when Spike starts eyeing the fire ruby, she doesn't even hesitate in trying to keep it from him. I may not appreciate Rarity's behavior at the beginning of this episode, but I can certainly respect her behavior here. It is only when Rarity shows her fire ruby that Spike remembers what he used to be. And remembering his act of charity almost instantaneously reverts him back to his old self. And we get one of the most touching moments in the entire series when Spike is about to confess his crush and Rarity shows that she had always known about it. But Spike still has to face the fact that he had completely lost all self-control. He is able to see all the destruction and mayhem that he caused. And while Spike had never given anyone else a reason to fear him before, his transformation was more than enough to cause the entire town to panic. I, for one, believe that the writers had really missed out on an opportunity for a follow-up to Secret of My Excess. We could have gotten an episode that showed how much the townsfolk were afraid of Spike after all this destruction, and even how a few of them might have tried to expel him from the town. Of course, the main six would stand firm on defending Spike, but even they could not put down the others' fears about another potential rampage so easily. It would have been an excellent opportunity to teach forgiveness, as even Spike would have difficulty forgiving himself. I really wish that the writers had taken advantage of such an opportunity, considering that Spike really needs more episodes that would develop his character, but the chance to make that particular episode has long since passed. However, we do get to see that the relationship between Spike and Rarity has grown closer from the experience. After all the build-up during Season 1, there is finally a payoff when Rarity is showing a more direct appreciation for Spike. And while I'm not really sure whether the writers will ever develop their relationship any further, I do hope that Rarity will continue showing that appreciation for Spike's efforts. Overall, though, I did enjoy watching this episode a little more than I thought I would. We get an intriguing concept about how dragons function in Equestria. We get some clever references and funny interactions. And it certainly feels good to see that Spike's crush actually did go somewhere and wasn't just a running gag throughout the show. In the meantime, I would like to hear your thoughts about this episode. Are you a fan of Spike and Rarity and believe that we should be seeing more to their relationship? Or do you think that the writers should keep things just the way they are now? Do you think there could be some more interesting possibilities with dragons given what we have learned about their life cycles? Do you think that the possible follow-up episode I presented here might have been a missed opportunity for the writers? Or would such an episode not work within the structure of MLP? I would like to hear your thoughts on Secret of My Excess, and here's to hoping that we'll be seeing more development from Spike in the future. I am DRWolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.